So my name is Mike Brennan. I'm part of the Europe Video Specialist team here at Avaya, and my focus is working on channels to help you, be able to understand and sell our Scopia proposition. So I'd like this to be an interactive session, so please interrupt with questions at any point in time. But the whole point of this conversation is we need to kind of start thinking differently about how we can use video within our businesses. And we'll see some reasons why, but there's been dramatic change in terms of products and technology and capabilities that have significantly expanded the use case possibilities of video in an enterprise. And before we even get into that, it's worth reminding ourselves of the benefits of just visual communications on their own, right? Take the technology out of it, but the bulk of human interaction is body language, right? And that is absolutely missing from an audio-only conversation. And so when you consider that things like being able to get that real-time feedback when you're involved in interaction with somebody, right? Being able to see whether or not they're paying attention, whether they agree with you and they're nodding along with you, or are they not agreeing with you at all? Right? That real-time feedback is important. Even something simple as putting a face to a name. Right? It's funny when you work with somebody and you finally kind of meet them, it makes it a lot easier working with them going forward, right? It makes things a little bit easier. So it's important to realize that visual communication has benefits. And basically that's what video collaboration or video conferencing does. It enables that face-to-face capability within an interaction. And here's some studies out of some American universities, but the bottom line is there are dramatic or significant increases in the amount of learning, the rate of absorption of information, and overall retention of that information when you add that face-to-face element into a communication. And what we see is that video meetings tend to be more effective and shorter. And there's lots of reasons for that. There's obviously these reasons here in terms of more focused attention and retention, but even some logistical things. You don't waste as much time trying to figure out, well, who just left the call or who just joined the call, and those type of things, because you can see them. And people tend to multitask less because they're on display. So as a result, meetings are more effective. And so when we look at video in general, it's been around in our personal lives, in the consumer world for years, right? We had Skype kind of started the whole consumer video thing and brought it to our laptops and PCs. And then FaceTime kind of brought it to our smartphones and tablets. And then we see Google Hangouts has kind of brought the first kind of consumer level multi-party video capabilities. And of course, YouTube is where we can record, store, and share videos, right? And these are used pretty much by everybody in our personal lives. So there's a user adoption in our personal lives of video. So how come that hasn't translated into the enterprise world or a business world? And there's lots of reasons for that. So a little history lesson here. We won't spend much time on this, but video conferencing has been around in the enterprise world for 50 years. But the adoption has never really taken off until quite recently. When we look back over time, we see that there was a nice kind of slight raise in adoption back in the 1990s when we were able to take video and put it on our IP networks. So from an IT point of view, things were a little bit better, a little bit more easy. And then as we got into 2000s, the end user experience showed some improvements. We introduced high definition resolution, that kind of 720p, 30 frame type resolution. So the end user experience improved. And that helped. But again, it wasn't a dramatic change in user adoption. And it's interesting that the Avaya Scopia portfolio, I'm not sure how many of you are aware of this, but it's based on the RadVision portfolio of products. We acquired RadVision 2 years ago. And the interesting thing about RadVision is RadVision doesn't have that kind of brand recognition that some of the other major video vendors do. And that's because of their business model before we acquired them. They were an OEM provider to Cisco, Camber, Polycom, Lifesize, right? And that was their business model. They sold through them. And the bulk of all of these vendors used RadVision at one point, or many points over those 20 years in terms of building their own products, right? Cisco was 50% of RadVision's revenues before they acquired Camber. And the key message behind all of that is that one of the critical points of having success with video deployed in your enterprise is it has to play well with others. It has to have that interoperability with other video conferencing platforms. Because you want to talk to your customers and your partners who may not have the exact same system. And due to this OEM business model, the RAD Vision, now Avaya Scopia, plays extremely well with others. It's the most interoperable platform on the market. Right, so that's just definitely worth keeping in mind. And then as we kind of approached 2010, we started seeing a change in how video is being used, right? It started becoming not a place you went to, but something that was brought to you. Another interesting thing is desktop and mobile. We're going to do a quick demonstration of that in a few minutes, but being able to bring video to you on your laptops and your mobile devices. The Scopia desktop mobile platform, it's been around since 2009. Right? A lot of the other platforms that you see in the marketplace now are relatively new to the market. So the reason for that is it's been on the market for a while, and it has some dramatic improvements over time, and I hope you'll agree that it's quite powerful. I want to show it to you later. The other thing we need to do is stop thinking about video conferencing in the traditional sense, right? Video conferencing, and it's one of those things where if you had a bad experience 5-10 years ago, you can't let go, right? Video conferencing used to be expensive, extremely expensive. You used to have to spend $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 on a video conferencing room system. That's no longer the case. It was difficult to use. It was, who do I call? I have to know IP addresses or somehow figure out some kind of directory that don't know how to access, right? Somebody had to launch the calls for me. The use case was traditionally for executives, right? So the bulk of us didn't have access to it. And the business case was primarily driven around reducing travel costs, right? That's been the story in video conferencing for 30 years. And it's still relevant and it's still a valid business case, but it's no longer the only business case, as we'll see in a minute. So what we'd like to do then is look what's happened over years. Right? All these changes in the marketplace and in technology. Like, HD's gotten even better. We're now at 1080p resolution, 60 frames a second, right? So the end user experience is better than ever. Costs have come down dramatically, and lots of other things. But if I was to pick out the two main things that have caused the most impact in the market in terms of raising user adoption, it's the mobile capabilities and simplicity. Right? We now bring video to your smartphones and to your tablets very, very easily. And it has to be easy and it has to work, or else people don't use it. And as a result, we've taken this kind of traditional video conferencing mindset and we've kind of transformed it into something that we call beyond the room video conferencing. So what does that mean? Basically, we're bringing video to you on the device that you're on, wherever you happen to be, when you want it to happen. And the control is up to you. You don't have to rely on somebody else to set that up and launch the call for you, right? It's available when you need it, and that's important. And as a result, we've seen the use cases open up dramatically. And we've kind of put them in these kind of 6 main buckets of use cases. I like to think about it, it's similar to when the iPad was just about to be launched, about 4 or 5 years ago now. There was a lot of chatter in the marketplace, well, these tablets will never take off. I got my smartphone, I got my laptop, what am I going to use this tablet device for? Well, in June, they hit the 200 million unit sale mark just on iPads. And of course, we have all the other tablets on the market, right? And look how iPads are being used in business now. They're being used in ways that nobody even imagined when they were launched 4 years ago. So you almost have to have a similar mindset when you consider, how can I use video within my business to change how I do things, to make things better? So if we dive into some of these, so each one of these slides will have a real use case in the middle. This is where Scopia has been deployed with one of our customers, and these use cases are all available on the partner portal. But candidate screening, a great HR function, but also in other elements of your business where you kind of use video to kind of expedite that kind of first and second level of candidate screening, right? AutoTrader deployed it, and you can't beat this return on investment. This is a real quote. Their return on investment was 1 month. They saved in 1 month the cost of the system, right? So they had some great success there. We know that our HR uses it in a big way in terms of recruiting here in Avaya. And particularly when you look at a lot of our leaders that get hired have kind of multi-country or European-wide remits, right? So being able to do those quick kind of panel interviews where all the vested parties are on the same interview on a video call makes it more efficient in terms of using everybody's time, but also dramatically reducing that time to hire, which is critical when you're filling executive positions. So you kind of take that idea and you can apply it against other verticals. Virtual visitation is an interesting one. There's a use case here in Idaho, but basically being able to kind of use video to kind of bring people together, right? So for example, hospitals and clinics. You know, my family's in Canada, so God forbid one of them ended up in a hospital today. I wouldn't be able to get there right away, but wouldn't it be great to be able to just have a kind of video meet with them and just check in on how they're doing? Right, we see that in the corrections, right, in the public sector. We're having that virtual visitation, whether it's getting those prisoners who have an appointment in front of the magistrate court. If you're going to get them there in person, it's a long, costly experience. They have to be escorted in a van. That takes time. You drive around the M25, get to their court, get placed in a holding cell, just to get in front of their court for maybe a 5 to 10 minute more like administrative exercise. And then the whole process goes back the other way. It's expensive and it's not very efficient. We're seeing a lot of video being used in that respect in that industry. Same with education and libraries and anything else, being able to bring more people where you are virtually through video. Corporate collaboration, this is one that has changed the way Avaya works globally with each other, amongst the different internal organizations, but also with our partners and channels. But effectively, it's just using video to work better with all the different functions within your enterprise. Right? If you look at a distributed sales force, you know, our president of Europe's got a sales force spread across Europe. He does his forecast calls every Monday. Everybody comes on by video. And you kind of look them each in the eye as they give their quarterly commit. Right? It's done quickly and efficiently. We see that with board meetings. That's been a big use of video for years now, right? Just being able to have those kind of, you know, senior board meetings all done over video, a much more efficient use of everybody's time. But then again, just improving how you work with people within your enterprise, right? Working together, but also with your customers and your partners. Expert anywhere, this is a great one. Right? Being able to quickly bring in that subject matter expertise into the meeting where you happen to be. You don't have to fly them in, they can come in. Sometimes you only want them to come in just to kind of validate a 15-minute point, right? So it's a much more effective use of your time. A great example of the British Medical Association, they gave evidence to the World Health Organization in Hague from the UK using Scopia, right? So their 1 hour session was a 1 hour session. But having that expert anywhere you can basically apply that to any vertical, right? Mike talked about buying a Mercedes. I buy a Kia for my family, so obviously, but being able to bring in that expert when you want to. If you're making a complex or expensive type purchase, you want to talk to somebody now, right? And being able to do that. We're seeing that in the banking industry. You can't have subject matter experts for all the banking products at every branch location. So you're seeing that move to video. We're seeing video-enabled ATM machines starting to be deployed in the US, right? Where you have that on-demand video expertise right there. And we're even talking about being able to scan a QR tag and switch that to your Google Glass so you can take that conversation away with you, right? All that kind of stuff isn't that far away. So expert anywhere, very important. But this is one you can really use your imagination on. And then you turn it around, remote eyes, same concept. But you're not looking at that other individual on the other side, you're looking at what they're looking at, right? Remote eyes, great use cases for video. Think about in the insurance industry. We have one customer in London. There's a lot of storms and all that rain back in January and February, a lot of damage to their customers' roofs. So they were using video to kind of record the damage to those roofs. And that way the customer has a record of it and the insurance company has a record of it. It's also a lot easier to show somebody the extent of damage to a roof as opposed to trying to explain it over a phone call, right? Well, let me just show you how bad it is, right? Think about, for those houses that were impacted by all that flooding. Well, how bad is the flooding? Well, let me show you, right? Very important. And it's simple, and it's accessible by everybody, and you can record it, right? Very easy. We talked about it also in the medical vertical, being able to do kind of remote medical diagnosis. In some countries where for the individual it's a kind of 2-hour drive or commute to get to the closest medical professional, being able to do that quick kind of remote medical diagnosis to say, actually you don't need to come in, right? There's so many different applications of video in the medical industry. Oh, just going back, this is one of my favorite ones. Sorry, when we talk about This is another example for home maintenance, right? These companies that kind of do maintenance visits on rental properties. The biggest cost for them is they show up to fix a problem and they don't have the equipment or tools in the van to fix that particular problem because it wasn't described properly over the phone call when it came in. So being able to see it before they deploy somebody reduces a couple cycles, right? And they show up and they're out ready to fix the problem. Distance learning, you can't say enough about how education and video work so well together. You know, we trained our entire European sales force on Scopia over Scopia. And the wonderful thing about it, you just turn on a recording, and that one kind of training session then becomes part of a virtual training library. So the employees afterwards click on the link and they have access to it. So for this session, for example, is being recorded. Right, we could this could be used over and over again, right? So lots of applications in education. We have university professors now who are holding virtual office hours, right? So the students or the professor don't have to be on campus, right? They can attend via video. Again, I'm not sure I want to learn CPR over video or be rescued by someone who has, but you can understand the application, right? That there's using video can just. And also, if you look at this particular use case in Portugal, where you're bringing in students remotely to join that session, right? They got 2,500 students now attending via video these lectures because they can't physically be there. So basically what this means, all these use cases, right? Thinking quite differently how you can use video. It basically turns it, Mike mentioned it earlier, how, video, I think I need it, or it would be a nice to have kind of thing. But it kind of transforms it in something that becomes mission critical, that actually changes fundamentally how you do business internally and with your customer and partner community. Does that stuff kind of make sense to you guys? Yeah. And so this is the only product slide I have, but I just wanted to show you that the Avaya Scopia portfolio is complete. We have the entire portfolio, whether it's from the end user devices, whether it's dedicated video conferencing room systems, desktop systems, mobile clients, plus we have the whole infrastructure products to back it up and manage it effectively. And whether that's a small 10-person deployment up to a large global enterprise deployment. Already including our only Microsoft certified link gateway, right? That's part of our portfolio as well, where you can drop that link gateway into an environment. We have the traditional video conferencing on one side, our link clients on the other, and they can participate in the same calls. Okay? So a complete portfolio is the message there. And when we look at IP Office, right, we do have 2 IP Office specific video products. They only work on IP Office. And they're basically very similar to our XT5000. That allow you to have an XT5000 kind of high definition video conferencing room system with a 9-port embedded MCU, right? So the system itself has a 9-port video conferencing bridge, so 9 people can join into the same conference, including Scopia mobile participants. So what are we selling? Well, basically we're selling multimodal conferencing, right? It's audio conferencing, it's video conferencing, and it's desktop share. So it's not just slides, it could also be whatever you're showing on your desktop, could be movies as well. And we're very flexible in terms of our approach. We could sell it as a standalone video conferencing deployment. There's still a big market for standalone video. You have a lot of legacy, kind of older video out there that's due to be upgraded. Whether the systems are not HD, so they want to move up to HD, or they're first generation HD systems, but they they don't support some of these new protocols that makes HD much more bandwidth friendly. Right? We talk about scalable video coding or H.264. So there's a massive potential just to upgrade existing video systems. Or we can sell it as an integrated component of your overall UC strategy, right? We've got some great kind of integration plans into Aura as well. And of course, it can be an on-prem configuration or cloud-based as well. Right, so very flexible approach in terms of how we can work with you and your customers. I'm going to talk real quick about this, but this is, we're proud of this, but it's also a very valid proof point of how if you take some video and you make it easy, you make it accessible by everybody, the adoption rate could take off in a big way. So if you go look at this chart, when we first before we deployed, or before we acquired RadVision, we did video, but we didn't do it very well. We probably did less than 1,000 calls a month. And it was probably done by the same 20 or 30 people who knew how to use it, right? So our video use inside of Avaya was awful. And then on the day that we acquired RadVision, on the first day, we turned up 4,000 virtual Scopia rooms. So 4,000 customer-facing sales associates had Scopia rooms. Now, of course, there was a bit of top-down encouragement saying, guys, we've acquired this company, this is the application, we expect you to use it. Okay, so there was a little bit of top-down encouragement. But what happened was, once they used it and saw how effective and how easy it was to use, it took off. So much so that within 3 months, we had to expand from 4,000 rooms to 10,000 rooms. And here's where we are today. We're up to April, but we did 54,000 video calls, conferences in the month of April alone. 54,000. That's an incredible number. Right, we're talking with one bank right now who spends $20 million a year on their global video conferencing deployment. They're doing less than 20,000. And the reason they're doing less than 20,000 versus numbers of this magnitude is because the simplicity and the mobile reach isn't working for them. Right? So we're very proud of that, and it's quite a powerful story. So that's all I wanted to kind of talk to you about from charts. Any questions or comments on what I've shown you so far?